Good evening, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the last session. Um, I'm very sorry we cannot come together today. Uh, Part of because of my own business, part of because everybody's business. But, anyways, I'm still very glad that we can share this time together in this way. So we thank technology that really allows us to do this. So let me know if you think this is helpful. If you think this is interesting, you would like to have more of these during the winter. I can even record one or two other recordings for some remaining topics if you're interested. All right, back to the topic. So this is going to be our last topic, and today I only have actually three things I want to talk about. The first one is to very quickly address the issues of language and identity. That means the concept of self, of course. And the second one will be talk about some kind of social aspect about how this can be related to our social relationship, our social identity, and the end will be very quick review of what have we covered so far in this course, because originally I want you to come along to talk about this from your own perspective, but since you're not here, I am going to give a very quick overview about things we have covered. So hopefully I can get all this done in an hour as our normal lesson time consumes. Okay, so let's get started. The topic today we're going to cover is language identity to start with. So the question I would like to raise in this page is, who are you? So originally I wanted you to play a group or a pair activity in which you're going to talk about yourself to your partner for about 1 minute. You can use any word you want, but just 1 minute, and the other person who listens to your introduction will need to take some notes on the following category of words: nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs, proverbs. These are the things we are interested in, how you describe yourself with these different words or word categories. Then you swap your position, so vice versa, do the same thing. Then we compare what you have put down with another person and then share to the group. So that was the activity. So if you're interested, you can actually record yourself back home and do the same thing. But it's just less fun, less interactive when you do it with a partner. But the idea behind this is, I really want to illustrate the point that the way we use language really shows our personality. It shows our social background. It shows us who we are. It can be explored on so many different levels. I'll give you three. Okay, so on a very, very higher level, from a society point of view, the way you use a language, what kind of aspect you focus on, what dialect you speak, and what kind of or categories of words you use more, or even the lexical choice you use for your daily speaking. It shows you, it shows your interlocutors who you are and what kind of environment you have, and what kind of educational background you have, and what kind of social exposure you are to. So this is a very accurate estimation. There was some experiments done in, I think was in the last 20, 30 years. Some of them very influential ones. I can introduce you one. One of the most important, most interesting the most interesting research published was in America. about this American accent, because we know in American accent they use the R sound a lot. So in linguistics we call it rhoticity. So this is somehow a kind of overly emphasized issue in capital city. So in New York, lots of people, they do this more unconsciously than in other cities. So some social scientists want to find out if that is the truth, because that's what they found. They observed this fact. So when they did this research, was about a very interesting thing was they hired a delivery person. So the delivery person will actually deliver some kind of anything, just product. But he will do this in a building, in an office building in New York. So they happen to be on different levels of this office building. They have a different levels of a social status related people. So for example, level 2 will be, let's say, just blue collar workers, and the level 4, let it be the white collar people in high ranking positions in the company. So what I found was, when the delivery person get to level 4, he will deliberately, but maybe I shouldn't use the word deliberately. Okay, he will unconsciously stress the R sound more. So this shows us, so not only who you are when you speak, you can actually somehow, without noticing, reformulate your language, or to do in a certain way to adjust it to the social context you're in. So this is why the language and identity issues are very, very interesting in social science. A lot of people in my field, they're doing this kind of research, for discourse analysis, sometimes a critical discourse analysis. We study the power struggle behind the conversation, behind people speaking. It can really show you how the social dynamics works behind the exchange. We will have a slide. I think we will have a slide about the communication. So we'll talk about that later on. So, okay, quickly I want to review the narrative theory. Some of you have already noticed this is the picture taken from, I don't know if you can recognize this. This is actually the picture illustrating Noah's Ark. That's from the Bible story, right? Old Testament. I think was in Genesis chapter 12 or 13. So the background of the story, I can leave it out. I don't have to stress too much. But the reason I'm using this is twofold. One is because the story is a narrative. It's a very, very important narrative. It shows us how in the biblical record, how the world was reformulated after this. And that is a good story to hear. That's why I'm using it. The other one is it actually relates to our next slide. That's why I'm using this image of this boat. Remember I said there are 3 different levels when it comes to the identity. Well, the second identity level will be about yourself, who you really are. That relates to the narrative story, the narrative theory we have talked about before. As we remember, we studied the story of Liz. If you forgot, go back to our story writing and our reflections on the story of Liz. So that was the girl who changed her life through her self efforts, and she really changed her life story. But the moral of the story was, when you look at a story like that, you turn to think about the beginning, the process, the ending. If you read it like a story, you can really see the leading in and the twists, the climax, and even the results of it. But what I showed to you in our earlier talks and slides is the narrative is somehow a very, very delicate issue when you talk about a person's lives, and when you talk about a narrative in a real life sense, it doesn't really goes the way as we read the stories, because things sometimes change, and this is the process of recalibration. So during this whole process, a lot of things will be changed. And there was a question, I don't know if I have raised to you guys or not, but it will come along in our next slide, is if your life has been constantly changing, so how much are you still the person who you are? So this is when we ask the identity question. Why I'm still me when so many things are changing? So during the life course, many things changed. As the Liz story, she changed her life completely from a girl begging on the street to a Harvard top graduate and owning her own company and publishing books, rewriting her life. Is she the still same person? So that's the question we need to ask, not only about Liz, it is also something we need to ask about ourselves. So when we do this whole thing, as we are talking about the narrative theory, or how language connects to our identity or memory, if you wish, all these things needs to be taken into account, because there's another very important theory. I think I've also told you guys that during the course. According to social construction theory, language plays a very important role from a very early point on of our lives. So according to Mead's theory, that's the founding father of social construction theory, the way we have our identity, the way we develop our identity is through our use of language, our interaction with other people through language, and our playful practice of language. This is how we learn social interactions. This is how we form the image of a self. This is how we learn identity. And this is how we learn social rules and our environment and other people, and as a way to reflect on ourselves. So in that sense, language is a very, very important tool. All right, so that is another reason, and also another level of talking about narrative. So now let's watch this little video. I want to show you why this boat is relevant here, and after the boat you will see why we're talking about this. Okay, so let's have a look.
Throughout the history of mankind, 3 little words have sent poets to the blank page, philosophers to the agora, and seekers to the oracles. Who am I? From the ancient Greek aphorism inscribed on the Temple of Apollo, "Know thyself," to the Who's Rock anthem, "Who are you?" Philosophers, psychologists, academics, scientists, artists, theologians, and politicians have all tackled the subject of identity. Their hypotheses are widely varied and lack significant consensus. These are smart, creative people. So what's so hard about coming up with the right answer? One challenge certainly lies with the complex concept of the persistence of identity. Which you is who? The person you are today, 5 years ago, who you'll be in 50 years? And when is am? This week? Today? This hour? This second? And which aspect of you is I? Are you your physical body, your thoughts and feelings, your actions? These murky waters of abstract logic are tricky to navigate, and so it's probably fitting that to demonstrate the complexity, the Greek historian Plutarch used the story of a ship. How are you I? As the tale goes, Theseus, the mythical founder-king of Athens, single-handedly slayed the evil Minotaur at Crete, then returned home on a ship. To honor this heroic feat, for 1,000 years Athenians painstakingly maintained his ship in the harbor, and annually reenacted his voyage. Whenever a part of the ship was worn or damaged, it was replaced with an identical piece of the same material, until at some point, no original parts remained. Plutarch noted the ship of Theseus was an example of the philosophical paradox revolving around the persistence of identity. How can every single part of something be replaced, yet it still remains the same thing? Let's imagine there are two ships, the ship that Theseus docked in Athens, Ship A, and the ship sailed by the Athenians 1,000 years later, Ship B. Very simply, our question is this: does A equal B? Some would say that for 1,000 years there has been only one ship of Theseus, and because the changes made to it happened gradually, it never at any point in time stopped being the legendary ship. Though they have absolutely no parts in common, the two ships are numerically identical, meaning one and the same, so A equals B. However, others could argue that Theseus never set foot on Ship B, and his presence on the ship is an essential qualitative property of the ship of Theseus. It cannot survive without him. So, though the two ships are numerically identical, they are not qualitatively identical. Thus, A does not equal B. But what happens when we consider this twist? What if, as each piece of the original ship was cast off, somebody collected them all and rebuilt the entire original ship? When it was finished, undeniably, two physical ships would exist, the one that's docked in Athens and the one in some guy's backyard. Each could lay claim to the title, the Ship of Theseus, but only one could actually be the real thing. So which one is it? And more importantly, what does this have to do with you? Like the ship of Theseus, you are a collection of constantly changing parts. Your physical body, mind, emotions, circumstances, and even your quirks, always changing, but still, in an amazing and sometimes illogical way, you stay the same too. This is one of the reasons that the question, who am I, is so complex. And in order to answer it, like so many great minds before you, you must be willing to dive into the bottomless ocean of philosophical paradox. Or maybe you could just answer, I am a legendary hero sailing a powerful ship on an epic journey. That could work too.
Alright, so that is the ship story. I hope that helps illustrate the point of 1, the importance of this issue, 2, why I'm using that image on the previous slide to introduce this topic. So now, I'm still owing you one more level or layer to this self story. Because I said in earlier, there are 3 different levels we'll explore this, right? So the third level, that will be the most secret, and also the deepest level will be the level of unconsciousness. So this is a very delicate issue as well, because we know the topic of unconsciousness is sometimes very murky area. It's not very close collected to, clearly related to a lot of people's daily topics, and you probably never thought of it. But think about this. When you are learning a language, when you are communicate with other people, the issue of unconsciousness or the issue of subconsciousness is always lurking in the background. Let me give you an example. So when you say something, when you communicate with someone, there are tiny moments of doubt we all have these moments, you would ask yourself, what should I expect from the other person? Because this is something you don't know. And the other problem is some areas of yourself you don't even know. So before you enter this conversational exchange with another person, this unknown or mutually unknown area is actually the area of unconsciousness. So you don't know about what you don't know. So that can open a box of millions of possibilities there. But that is also one of the beauties of languages. And another one relates to self. So that's the third level. So that's why I'm saying there are at least three different levels when it comes to language. You always think about the self, because there are so much about ourselves we don't really know and we need to explore. And language is one very, very useful tool when it comes to this. You can use it for self-reflection. You can use it for studying communication, which we're going to talk about very soon. And you can also use it in a discourse level. We will also talk about that as well, but we will talk about the two kinds of discourse in our slides today. Okay, so one in linguistic aspects, the other one in social science aspects. All right, without further ado, let me introduce our second topic, that is language in communication. So language in communication, here I want to introduce this very, very powerful framework. This is from Paul Grice. This is the very famous philosopher of language from America, very active in the last century, end of last century actually. It was I think he died in 2000 or something, or even maybe a bit earlier, 1990 something. He has many different theories, but this one is probably the most well-known one. That's the maxim of communication or conversation. So according to Grice, sorry, I think I typed his name wrong. Yeah, it should be Paul Grice. So yes, it's Grice, Grice. My apologies. So according to Paul Grice, there are four aspects here. So one is maxim of quantity. That means be informative. And the maximum of quality, that's be truthful. And the maximum of relation, that's relevance. And the last one will be maximum of manner, that's clarity. So let me give you some examples to illustrate the points. So when we talk about quality, when we talk about a quantity, let's start with the first one. You want your conversation with the other person to be just the right amount, not too much, not too little. In life, we sometimes have this kind of conversation when you ask someone about a question, they either give you too much information or they don't give you what you want at all. A good example would be if you meet someone on the street. Out of politeness, you will ask this person, how are you? You don't expect a lot of answers. You don't expect a really mouthful conversation. All you want is just maybe just a smile or a nod. That's all you are expecting. But this person totally misunderstood you. He or she start to talk to you about her life non-stop for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, until you have to tell that person, okay, you need to go. So this is what I mean by quantity. Maybe I was exaggerate this conversation situation a little bit, but it does happen in life. Sometimes you only want to know the right amount of information, but the person, they didn't know that. So that's why misunderstanding will happen. That's bad communication. And the second one about quality is somebody lied to you. That's very easy to understand. You want something just as a fact. something as a truthful fact, but that person either lie to you or tell some kind of jokes, not taking it seriously, or even be sarcastic. These are all the things we can calling the breaking of maxim of quality, or flouting of quality. And another example will be about relevance. That can be culturally or contextually related. Say you are saying something about one topic, but another person suddenly changed the topic to another thing. Sometimes it is a very pragmatic rule of talking. So when you are showing this kind of strategies, the other person theoretically should know maybe it's time to change the topic. So a very useful social clue when people doing conversation will be someone ask you, oh, how's life? So if you are not really willing to share this information with that person, or you think maybe this is not the best card to play at the moment, you probably will very strategically change the topic by talking about something else, maybe commenting on that person's dress or the weather even. So that person will know, okay, probably this is not a topic to talk about, so we'll change the subject. So that is about relevance. So we use that sometimes deliberately as a tool. And the last one is manner. So that's about ambiguity and obscurity. So obscurity is a little bit tricky here. Let me explain that to you. Here it means jargons. Okay, so if I talk to you in a lot of computer science related or cognitive science related jargons, you cannot understand me. Even though I said the right words, I don't use complicated sentence structure, but these words are not clear to you. They're not transparent. So that's why it blocks the communication. So that is what we mean by the maximum of a manner. So make sure what you're going to say is in the right manner, in a way is clearly, easily understandable by the other person. So that's the 4 different maxims. Okay, so according to Grice, as long as you're obeying these 4 maxims, the conversation, the communication will go smoothly. So this is the point. Now this is the article I asked you to read, because it's a group activity. That's why I will only talk about this very quickly, then we can move on to the next one. So originally the idea is for you to talk with each other about these rules or these suggestions given by Habermas. So Habermas is a very influential figure about general pragmatics, I think, about social communication, also through language. So his theory is about what you can see here. That is the general pragmatics of communication. So it builds on the theory of speech act. There are 2 important concepts here you have to know. One is called the perlocutionary act. The other one is an illocutionary act. This is a quite influential theory in linguistics, especially modern linguistics after the 1970s, I think. So it's a quite influential figure, showed up and proposed this framework. Americans as well. So one is Austin, the other one is John Searle. They came up with this idea called a speech act. So by speech act, it means do things with your words. There are certain words in English or sentences, when you speak it, you deliberately mean an action. So it's not only just a sentence. The sentence is intrinsically related to an act. So that's why we call it a speech act. For example, if I say, I apologize. So this is a very important example. Apologize is a verb. So when I say I apologize, there is an intention there. That means I am going to do it, right? Another very good example used by Austin himself was I do. So that's the question about when you are doing a marriage ceremony, the bride and the groom will say this to the priest who is holding the wedding ceremony. When you say I do, that means I'm making a promise to keep this marriage vow and to apply my obligation in this marriage. So this is another very good example of using speech act. So it's not applicable on every utterance, not on every verb, but there are certain blocks of language. It is very pragmatically oriented. There are some words and some sentences when you say that it is related very closely to an action, to a performance. So the word perlocutionary act, it is illustrated on the listener's perspective, and the word illocutionary act, it is illustrated from the speaker's point of view. So they are both pointing to the same speech act, but because they are from different perspectives, so sometimes these two can be different. Okay, so that's the thing I want to mention here, because in Habermas's article, the one I sent to you, he mentioned these two concepts. I don't know if you checked the dictionary or not, so just want to make sure that's clear. Okay, so about this theory, about this communicative structure or framework, we probably will address it again in our future lessons. So for now, I'm just very briefly introduce this topic. So this is one of the areas we're going to explore more in the future. Okay, so that's all I want to say now. Okay, so next, let's go to the concept of discourse. So for discourse, as I said, I will give you two levels of discourse. One is from the linguistic point of view, is where you can see it now. The other one is from a social science point of view. That's a higher level of discourse. So the first way to look at a discourse, it is a collection of language exchange. Okay, that's probably the best way to understand it. So it could be orally oriented, or it could be written down languages. As long as it is exchange, it is text or language chunks, we can call it a discourse. So what you are seeing now is a very powerful framework or structure proposed by Prince in 1992. So here he gives this matrix of cross-cutting dichotomy. That's how he calls it. So don't be afraid by the name. So what he meant here is, in this dichotomy, you can see from this picture, there are two features of discourse. One is about the package. Okay, so that's a morphological or structural package structure of a sentence or a chunk of sentences. So when you speak to someone, think about how you organize your words. So this is what I mean. Okay, that's the structural aspect of your discourse. The other one is the informational structure. So that's what you can see from here. That's new or old. That's the second part of it. And there's a third element, that is the intention. So that's where we mark the speaker and the hearer. So here, according to Prince, the way we discuss the communication or discourse-based communication can be shown or illustrated by this matrix. This is how we come to this diagram with this matrix term. So by matrix, I mean there are 4 different ways or channels based on a combination of those 2 aspects I told you. One is about whether it is old or new. That's about the content. The other one is about how this message is combined or how it is structured. So you can have hearer old, discourse old. That means the sentence you're saying is already known by your interlocutor, and it is obvious in the current context. That's what we mean by hearer old, discourse old. So in this case, the information is not valuable. Okay. The second case is hearer old, discourse new. That means this information, what you are going to say in your sentence, your utterance, it is already known by your interlocutor, but for the current context, it is new. So there are some certain aspects is valuable to point it out in the exchange. And the third one is hearer new, discourse new. So that means it's unknown to your hearer, to your interlocutor. It is also new to your current context. And the last one will be hearer new, discourse old. That means what you are going to speak about is quite obvious to the current context, but your interlocutor doesn't know. So these are the 4 different ways we organize the discourse, or we describe a conversation between a speaker and hearer with these 2 dimensions, if you wish. So one is whether the content is old or new for the discourse, for the context. The other one is whether it is interested or valuable to your hearer, to your interlocutor. So this is the framework or the structure of how you describe a conversation in this way. So this is the discourse in a nutshell in linguistic aspect. But on top of this, I still want to say one more thing. It's not in the slide, but I want to add this, is in English we have this very important concept called end weighing. I think end weight is one of the concepts I have actually used in the inversion course, the version lesson. If you have attended the inversion lesson, you probably heard of it somehow from my introduction. So basically it means in English we put the emphasis, naturally, of course, we put the emphasis of our sentence or our idea to the end of a sentence. The reason for us to do that is this is from a sentence level discourse structure. We normally put the known information in the front and we leave the new information to the end. So sometimes in this kind of context you can meet another 2 concepts. One is called a theme, the other one called a rime. So by theme it means the topic, so it's normally show up at the front. And by rime it means the content or the details. That's normally show up in the end. So that's why we're stressing the end and we're putting more weight and emphasis on the end part of the sentence. That's why it's more important. That is the rime. And of course, after you say something, a natural conversation will go in exchange. So the second line, when your interlocutor says something to you, he or she will use your old rime as the new theme of their sentence, and they will come up with some new rime. So this is how rime, theme, rhyme, theme, exchange through sentences. That's how you encapsulate your information in different sentences. That's how they exchange with each other in the discourse sequence. I hope this concept is clear, but don't worry if you don't understand. We will talk more about this in our later classes. Okay, so that's the lower level of discourse. Now let's come to the higher level. So the higher level, it is on a social aspect, because I said to you, by discourse, if you talk about discourse in the linguistic aspect, you only mean a collection of text or oral utterances in different genres. This is what we call discourse. But if you come to social science, discourse means communication. Any kind of language or text existence, as long as it is used in the purpose of communication, it can be called a discourse. So why this is important to you? Because from an educational point of view, you have to understand this concept. So this is the power concept. As you can see on this slide, for us, if we're doing language awareness, there's a very important concept we call the power domain. So this domain is probably the least mentioned ones compared with other domains. But you have to understand, being a competitive and a capable language speaker, if you want to have a high level language awareness, this is one of the aspects you have to pay attention to. Because in real world, this is what we're trying to cover in this course. In real world language speaking, power struggle and power relationship is always there. So it can be a personal level power. So who you talk to, whether to your boss, to your child, to your student, to your peers, you use different words and a different genre or styles. Or from a institutional level, whether you serve in a school or a community, there are different ways of thinking, different ways of presenting an idea. You can even use the word propaganda in this sense. So this is what we mean by power aspect. So there are certain things in a mainstream culture, it is presented in certain ways. And being critical here is it means you have to challenge yourself, being critical about why certain things are said in certain ways, why certain words are chosen in certain context. This is what I mean by power domain, by power relationship, and by discourse in a social scientific point of view. Okay, and here you can also see another name showing up in the end. That's the critical language awareness. So by critical means we are emphasizing on the power domain. So here we will challenge the hegemonic power structures and the ideological values behind the daily use of language, whether it's by individuals, by communities, or by certain cultural settings. Pay attention to that, because as you are advanced level students, you need to be aware of this, because you are on the right level of understanding this, and you are on the right level of practicing this. So pay attention to this. It's very useful for you to develop your language awareness and also develop your general critical thinking skills. Okay, so that's why we're going to mention this in here. And we also continue to talk about this in our future lessons. So I think till here I have covered all the new things I meant to cover today. So now I will quickly recap and wrap up what we have learned through this last 4, maybe 5 months. Okay, so this would be quite quick, maybe 5 minutes also. So this is a diagram I want to show you about what is the language and key features of languages. You can see from here, in my definition, I think this is shared by a lot of teachers and linguists. There are 5 different areas when we talk about languages. So we talk about phonetics, morphology and semantics, syntax, grammar, discourse and pragmatics, and cross-cultural and sociolinguistics. And you probably noticed in the last 4 months we have been focusing on the last 2, the bottom 2 areas. If you can realize that, that means you have been very reflective and you have kept a very good track of what we have done. So yes, that's my focus, and this is also my intended area that I want you to take from this course, and I hope you have learned something from the last 4 months of exchange and the discussion. And I have to say, every one of you did a really good job in the last 4 months, and you contributed a lot to the course, and I really appreciate 3 things. One is your independent thinking skills. It's really valuable for this course. And the second one is your effort you've put into this course. I know it is extra course for you, takes your precious weekends time, especially the morning time. You sacrifice your sleep and your personal relaxation. You come to the course and learn with others. So these are really valuable to me. And the last aspect is about this community we have developed. I really appreciate that. This is probably my most highly appreciated point about this group. I think you guys work together really well as a team. Whether in pairs or in teams, you work together and you collaborate really well, and you have your independent views on things, and yet you tolerate with each other and you exchange your ideas. This is what we want for a learner community. So I have to congratulations and thank you guys. You've done very well. And in the coming year 2025, we will work more on discourse and the pragmatics, and also the sociolinguistic aspect, of course. If there are anything you are interested in, phonetics or syntax or grammar, you can let me know. Okay, we will definitely arrange that. We will cover certain bits of morphology. We will, but probably in a more cross-linguistic kind of way. So we make some comparisons with other languages, with other word languages. So that helps you to reflect on the nuance of English from a new perspective. So I think that's this slide, and since you're not here, we cannot do this, but you can see the link here is we can have a group discussion, and in the end you put it to our Padlet discussion page. Sorry, I put the wrong spelling here again, so it should be Padlet. Yeah, I apologize. Okay, so this is where you're going to put your final thoughts here. Okay, I will keep the link and share this slide with you. So if you are interested to writing something as a reflection, I would definitely read that. So put it in here. Okay, and my last words for you is, well, have a look. The language, mind, and the world. So I'm leaving you with this humility picture, this drawing, or this painting, should I say, and some good points I want to share with you. So do not be afraid to challenge the status quo. Do not hesitate to think and ask why. Do not stop learning and developing. Do not be afraid of trying new things and failing. Do cherish the time you shared with others. Do stay mindful and keep a sense of humility. Hence why I'm using this painting. And do practice love and kindness in both words and actions. Okay, so in the end, I wish you, every one of you, a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I will see you in 2025. All right, take care. God bless you all. Bye.